Welcome to the Global Gaming Business Podcast. Today's podcast is sponsored by Pavilion Payments, which empowers gaming institutions to create an enhanced patron experience with a complete suite of integrated payment solutions that enable safe, secure, and trusted cash access at the cage, on the casino floor, or online. Learn more at pavilionpayments.com. I'm Roger Gross, the publisher of GGB, and this week we speak with David Rebuck, the director of the New Jersey Division of Gaming Enforcement, where he has served as a leader longer than any other director. In this podcast, he recalls the hot-button issues he had to deal with during his time at the DGE. When Rebuck announced his retirement last week, he concluded 13 years as the head of the New Jersey Division of Gaming Enforcement, the longest reign in the history of the agency. During his time, the DGE set regulations about the legalization of iGaming, helped New Jersey become the first state to operate sports betting outside of Nevada, oversaw the closing of 4 Atlantic City casinos in 1 year, endured the pandemic, and much more. Rebuck recalls all those issues in a podcast we had with him in December at the DGE offices in Atlantic City. Dave, it's great to see you. We've done this many times. I think the last 3 times we did it, they were supposed to be exit interviews, and they weren't. But I think this time it's for sure. So
right.
Let's start with congratulations on all the time you've spent in New Jersey. You've really made your mark on the industry, on both the online and the land-based industry. And I want to go through a lot of the points that you had to face during your time here. So it's great to see you.
Well, it's great to see you again, and welcome back to Atlantic City. I know you have a home here. It's always good to have you in town, and we've been doing this for a long time, and you've been in the industry a lot longer than I have, so you could write a book more so than I can.
Maybe I will someday. But
okay.
So let's start with your time here. Explain how you became the director, and who was the original governor that appointed you?
I still have that memory.
You served several of them.
No, just 2, really.
Okay.
And I have to say this, and I've said it publicly before, as people have asked me. I've been very fortunate because the 2 governors I served under, the first one that appointed me was Chris Christie.
Mm-hmm.
I had been in the DAG's office in New Jersey, and then after he was elected governor, there were people on his staff that I had worked with in New Jersey.
Yeah.
And they had asked me to join them in the governor's office, and I accepted.
Okay.
And so I was on the governor's staff, reporting to the chief of staff at the time, which was Rick Spager. Wayne Hasenbell was the assistant, or the second in charge of chief of staff's area, and it was a great team that we were with. And so I was there for almost 2 years, and part of the Governor Christie's initiative at the time was to take a fresh look at Atlantic City, the casino industry. If anybody remembers, back in 2009, 10, even 11, there were some dark days facing the casino industry in New Jersey at that time, or Atlantic City, because that's the only place that the casinos are located. And due to competition and surrounding neighbors, Pennsylvania, obviously, racinos in New York, of course, casino gambling and up and down the East Coast.
Right.
And the monopoly that existed from 1978 until probably the late 90s and early 2000 was gone.
Right.
And the challenges on this industry were great, and there was a strong desire by the industry, the governor's office, the legislature, to try to provide resources to the industry to be more competitive, to provide them with opportunities to determine if the regulatory structure was working as effectively as we wanted it to in the future, based on the fact we've had it since 1978. And part of that was then that I had a number of duties in the governor's office, but one of the areas that I was responsible for was essentially being the liaison to the Attorney General, because they had come from the Attorney General's office, and dealing with issues and concerns in the governor's office associated with all things in the Attorney General's office, and a couple other departments that had no bearing on Atlantic City at the time. So definitely part of a team of people that was part of the review of all the issues I was talking about. And, at the time, Chief Counsel was Jeff Chiesa, who's later going to be Attorney General and Senator from New Jersey, Rich Bagger, and a whole team of people that we won't even go into.
Right.
But one of the products that came out of that was a report, which is public, called the Hansen Report. And it was led by 5 individuals, John Hansen being one, who had been New Jersey Sports and Exposition Authority chairman for many years. And this report that came out probably in 2010, early 11, and essentially it was the blueprint at the time for how to do regulatory reform, legislative change to help the industry.
Right.
I was part of that team, and then we began the process from the governor's office of working with those in charge in the AG's office, division director at the time, and the Casino Control Commission at the time to implement those changes.
Right.
So that's how it all started.
Okay. So one of the things that happened during that regulatory reform was a shift from the investigative function of the Casino Control Commission completely to the DGE.
Right.
So you do all the investigations, and the Casino Control Commission actually issues the licenses. And that was not always the case.
No, it wasn't.
There was a lot of duplication there.
Massive legislative change led by the legislative leaders at the time. You had individuals like Ray Lesniak, Steve Sweeney, and others who worked with the governor's office make that legislative change.
Right.
And so that legislative change then took effect, and that's what happens in political environments.
Right.
The governor wanted to make a change in who was going to be his point person in Atlantic City as the division director, reporting to the Attorney General, and make sure everything that was in that report, the blueprint report and the legislation, was put into effect.
Right.
And I didn't want the job. I didn't aspire to the job, but
you got it.
I was approached. I wasn't approached. I was told I will be the person, and then I was. People know I wasn't really pleased, but in nature of the business that we're in is when the boss asks you to do something,
You do it.
you're going to do it.
That's right.
Or you're going to leave.
Yeah.
And I was not prepared to leave.
Yeah.
So all the support in the world from the governor's office then to do what had to be done back in 2011, and we started the process of the regulatory reform. Now, as you'll go into, there was a lot of other things that were being looked at the time to implement during after 2011.
Yeah. There's a lot of, I think the casinos got an opportunity to give more feedback than they had in the past. So, and that was a good thing.
Yes, it was.
So when you look at what happened there and how kind of shrunk the function, and you physically shrunk the members of the Casino Control Commission, what kind of relationship did you have at that point, and what do you have now?
Well, at the time, the biggest change that was made was what you described, and essentially the structure of oversight and regulation of the industry. The casino bricks and mortar was 2 equally sized units. One was a commission, of Treasury. They probably had about 300 people. Division itself, as you explained, we probably had almost 300 people too. When it was all said and done, every function except for 3 areas came to the division to do. And that was 2 of them are really adjudication functions, and one that the division would make its reports on casino licensing to the commission, who would have hearings and approve or disapprove.
Right.
The second was, as those who are familiar in the industry, we have supervisors, key employees, qualifiers, the high level positions in the casino or working in the industry. Every one of those would be report to the commission staff, or the commission itself would then thumbs up, thumbs down, override what we would recommend. Still in existence today. And then the third issue was really, there's so much power that was then presented in the division, and I think appropriately did this by the legislature. You have to have a check on the division, and so if the decision is made by the division or the director, it was seen as being arbitrary or capricious or incorrect, there's an appeal mechanism.
Right.
And the appeals of any decisions that we make impacting licensees or registrants or vendors or anybody we oversee could go directly to the commission as the hearing body.
Okay.
And I'm very pleased to say that we don't have many appeals.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No question. And there hasn't really been a lot of you approve somebody and the commission rejects them. I mean, they pretty much I don't want to say rubber stamp them, but they've affirmed your decisions.
We've had very few decisions overturned over the 12 years I was here, and I don't have any problem with anybody double checking and challenging what we've done, and that's due process. I'm an attorney. I appreciate that, and but as you know, the power that rests with most regulators and particularly division directors like myself is immense, and you have the ability to, as a division or a government agency, to do things that can really be disruptive to a person's life. And so there should be an appeal mechanism to protect against erroneous steps being taken or negligent steps being taken by the division. And we don't have many of that overturned. And, so we have a great relationship right now with the commission. It's led by Chairman Plosius. Jim Plosius and I worked together many years before he was chairman, and he has been a great ally in regulating this industry, and the partnership we have developed together is one that I think should be held up to many other jurisdictions to understand it should work that way.
Sure, absolutely. So soon after you were appointed, there was a move to legalize iGaming, which had never been legalized anywhere in the United States before. So you had no blueprint. I mean, when casino gaming first came to Atlantic City, Nevada was had land-based gaming. Of course, we're not going to copy Nevada, but but you had nothing to look at, except for some of the foreign agencies. And I know you visited some of the other countries that had legalized it in the past and seen what they'd done regulatory-wise. How difficult was that to really figure out how it would apply to the U.S.?
Well, it was a huge challenge, and everything you said is accurate. We couldn't fail, though. And we were given, under the legislation, 9 months to implement a regulatory model for internet casino gambling. Now, we saw it coming, so I will be honest to say we started doing research long before that law got signed into place by the legislature and the governor at that time. And there was a series of back and forth, if you remember. So there was a little leg room leeway there where you knew it was probably going to happen. So we started looking at it probably easily 6 months to 9 months before the law was passed that kicked in the 9 month. And it's what you said. I mean, the industry itself, the U.S.-based industry, didn't engage in internet gaming, and individuals had some ideas coming from your traditional land-based sector, but we very quickly understood that if this was going to be successful, it was more than likely that it was not going to be in-house casinos developing internet gaming systems. They were either going to have to acquire a company that existed already outside the United States, or they were going to have to partner with these companies. And there was a tsunami flood of foreign jurisdictional companies based on gaming in Europe particularly that were here, coming here and giving us their ideas, their concepts. And we had to do a lot of listening, a lot of questioning, and I would say it was most difficult because the European way of doing things, different country, different culture, different laws that impact consumer protections and integrity that we were worried about. We had to educate them, they had to educate us, and we were most concerned with, at the time, we knew it was going to be really robust when we started, but we wanted to come out of the box and start to understand that it was going to be successful without scandal, embarrassment, and failures. And so anybody that looks at the numbers, as you well would have seen, it was a small amenity when it first started. Well, it's changed over time.
It has. Well, it kind of has rescued the casino industry in New Jersey. I mean, we'll talk a little later about the casinos that shut down, but
Sure.
but the casinos that are existing right now, get at least a third of their revenue from online, if not more.
Well, again, it's go back to what I said. I mean, people think that every dollar made in online gambling goes to the casinos. It
Right.
doesn't,
Right.
because some casinos have been very aggressive, or companies that operate casinos have been very aggressive in acquiring
Right.
the expertise. They haven't built it up in-house. These
Sure.
are technology
Right.
companies, and most casinos are not, their strength is not as a technology company.
for
It's
sure.
an entertainment business.
Right.
And as they began to expand out of gambling, we've seen it over time, in the non-gaming areas and diversifying your gambling products,
Right.
right? I would agree to you. If the properties in Atlantic City and New Jersey had not expanded to what they offered to the general public, we were only left with what we were doing back in 2011,
Right.
it would be a different environment
Yeah.
here today.
No question. Yeah, no question.
And so yes, with the growth, the diversity of offering, the new forms of gambling, in New Jersey, it is not cannibalized.
Right.
It
Yeah.
is definitely not cannibalized the offerings. It has brought in a new demographic of individuals who they can market to,
Right.
and it has expanded their opportunities to be successful as a business.
Right. Right.
And the regulations we have in place, we've tweaked them over that 12-year period of
Sure.
time a
Yep.
lot, as you know, but we nailed it when we first came out.
Yeah.
We have lessons learned since then. Yes, we have updated ID protections and personal protections and
Right.
fraud protections through the KYC systems. We've done a lot on cybersecurity changes that
Sure,
didn't exist back in 11. We've done a lot of responsible gambling because the opportunities for technology in these areas is immense compared
Right.
to what existed in the past. AML safeguards, same thing. We've got new safeguards in play that didn't exist to us regulatory system in 11. And then our advertising and marketing controls and concerns for promotions, yeah, they were always in place in land-based operations, but when you have this new online gambling available and most of the companies running it as partners are from Europe, there's a lot of education has to go on what we require for consumer protection,
Sure.
what we require for promotions, what we require to ensure that the patrons engaged in gambling on these platforms are just as protected in the online world as they are in the retail world.
Sure. Sure.
So a lot of lessons learned, but never had that scandal.
No, absolutely not.
So
And-
definitely embarrassed at times internally with things that weren't working the way we thought.
Right.
But the lesson learned there was we worked with the industry and talked to individuals. Why is this not working the way we thought it was going to work? And we adjusted.
Yeah, no question. Now, New Jersey, its regulatory standards, that have evolved over the years, certainly in land-based and now in online, they're just at the top of the line. When you look at the revenue that comes in from online gaming, New Jersey always, ever since you started in 2013, it's always been number one until recently when New York, but
Yeah.
when you consider the population of New Jersey of 9 million versus Pennsylvania, which is much higher, and even Michigan, you're still beating Michigan, and then New York is coming on. Of course, they have a tremendous amount of players, possible players. So, the fact that New Jersey is still up one or two is pretty amazing.
It surprises me. There's many times when I thought that New Jersey would be negatively impacted in iGaming and sports wagering due to the expanding
Right,
competition regionally. You're correct. We haven't seen it. I get asked questions by my Governor Murphy, and I'm like, I don't understand why. I give him I'll tell you what I tell him, and that is, I think, one, the industry knows we have a really good model here and are committed to do things the right way here. And that gives the patrons an opportunity to see product that is better,
Right.
okay,
Sure. Yep.
than maybe what offered in other areas. Our tax rate is fair. That gives the industry opportunities to be more investing in this
Right.
area.
Right.
And we are very open to new initiatives from the industry to do things in a way that they're not doing in Europe and maybe going to roll out here in the United States as a way to, now that they've learned our market,
Right.
and we're going to be working with them to make sure that New Jersey's first.
Yeah.
So we have the opportunities here of being, the regulator knows, I mean, as a regulator, I'm very comfortable with our standard regulation. I think the industry knows that we're fair. The industry knows that we're also not going to just roll over and give them everything they want. But there is definitely an open line of communication and a sharing of information that maybe other jurisdictions don't do because they see the industry as more adversarial than we do here. But I can assure you that the industry here also understands they have a responsibility to perform to the standards that we have in our regulations. And if they don't, we will have a dialogue.
Right. Right. And then a few years ago, sports betting was legalized, and you guys were ready for that. You were the first ones to launch outside of Nevada. So, how did you prepare for that?
Oh, that was, well, as you know, the litigation was on for years.
Sure, right.
And I don't know if many people know this, but when we first drafted regulation, the law was passed. Obviously, constitutional referendum was done, law was passed. And the day before, we drafted the regs. They were ready to go. We were going to issue the regs, and we were ready to take that first bet. And then the injunction came in from the federal government. So we had a first round of regs that we had researched and studied, and this goes back 7 years before the Supreme Court even made the decision.
Right.
Now, I'll tell you this. In hindsight, I wish it hadn't taken 7 years, but the best thing that happened to us was in that 7-year window, we got to be a little more strong in what we understood the sports wagering business was going to be. And those regs that never saw the light of day, we were working on constantly and updating them. And as you know, we went to the Supreme Court, and one of the things most people have seen was the Governor Christie at the time, soon out of office, and after the Supreme Court arguments in December of 17, he was on the first steps of he was on the steps of the Supreme Court with Ted Olson.
Sure.
And the media was, how'd you do? And, blah, blah, blah. And of course they asked the question, when are you going to be able to go live?
Right.
And I was standing next to a very influential legislator at the time, and Governor Christie came out of nowhere and said, 2 weeks. And I was like, oh my gosh, 2 weeks. Well, good. The governor's not going to be in office when this happens. And we had a new governor. And I will tell you right now that the new governor, Governor Murphy, has been great to me. He's given me everything we need to do the job. He was the relief pitcher that came in the ninth inning, got the win and got the save when we got sports wagering.
Right.
And he supported us in ways that people don't understand.
Sure.
But allowed the division to present to him, and I committed to him, when we win this case, because at the time I thought, we're going to win now.
Yeah.
If anybody who sat through that hearing said, if we don't win this, I'll be surprised.
Yeah.
Can't bet on it because of obviously, well, you're not allowed to bet on it, we know that.
Yeah.
But you can't predict what the Supreme Court's going to do. But
Right.
it was a great sense that the arguments we had made were well received, and we got everything out on the table, and Ted Olson did a fantastic job. And his team did a fantastic job. So we didn't know when the decision was going to come out, but I committed to the governor at the time. When that decision comes out, you will have the regs. You will have to change the law, because remember, our law had to change if we won the case, because we adjusted the law to kind of beat the government in their arguments on sports wagering. And I said, government, we will take bets, within a very short period of time, whatever time frame you want.
Yeah.
But these will be on your desk
Right. Yeah.
And your staff, of course, at the time, governors and your staff can review them and comment on them and ask us questions, which they did do. So
Sure.
we were ready to release. And the rest you saw. The decision came out. Monmouth wanted to be the first bet because of all the actions that have been taken by Monmouth to support this litigation with Dennis Drazian and his efforts in supporting this. And so that's where the first bet was taken.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, we got it up, and just again, rollout was slow, and I mean, everybody knows that I was here. My goal at the time was, because of our population, I've had a very strong feeling we're gonna surpass Vegas.
Right, sure.
We are gonna surpass them, and we're gonna be the top dog.
Right. Yeah.
And it took us a while, but we did get there within, I think it was 6-7 months.
Right.
And you know, we just had a different philosophy on how sports wagering was going to work in this state compared to what it was done in their state.
Sure.
You know, you're from Nevada.
Right.
I mean, it had people in Nevada coming. Why are you doing all this argument? It's a small amenity. It's not going to. You're going to make any money.
Right.
You know, it's only get 4% yield on the bets, and I'm looking and going, well, we're not reading it that way.
Yeah.
And I hope it doesn't work that way, because this is all about helping our industry.
Right.
Right?
Sure. Right.
And we're only going to get a game that yields 4% on handle. It's like, okay, well, that's good, but well, it's not that way.
Right.
As you well know, and everybody knows.
Yeah.
And with online and retail and this, I mean, it's a shot in the arm.
Right. Well, you know, sports betting spread like wildfire now. There's over 30 states and
38.
territories.
38.
You know, and a lot of them use your regulations.
And I'm very not going to be arrogant, but we had said that to this Governor Murphy. Made it very clear. We have an open door policy. Anybody needs help for any other state, you give them what you need. You work with them, because in the end, we want this to work nationally.
Right,
We just
sure.
don't want it to work in New Jersey and everybody else fall on their face. So it's been very common understanding. We will work with any state jurisdiction, and we have
Sure.
to show them how we do things, give them our reports, give them our regs, give them everything we do
Right.
here. And if they want to adopt it, great. If they think they can do it better, fine. But I look them in the eye like I'm telling you now. It's like,
Right.
you copy everything we do, and I can assure you that you probably copy 90% of it.
Right.
You'll be fine.
Yeah.
Get your people trained, get your right people hired, get them up to speed. You'll be good. You'll be good.
Right.
And I think we've had a lot of success in this country with states rolling this out. And as you know, others have passed this now, for what you said. And
Right.
gambling's based on population.
Yeah. For sure.
You know, we have 9 million. Others have 20 million. They should do really well.
No lines using the app.
When I need more money, I don't have to get up and go get in a long line.
I think this is definitely the future of gaming.
So at the same time, though, the sports betting spread like wildfire. iGaming hasn't done that at the same time. I mean, there's been a few states that have done it. I think Michigan did it right, but in terms
they
of
did.
you know, rolling out, they seem to be more reticent about legalizing iGaming. What do you think that is?
Well, again, it's surprising to me because you saw an article the other day from Jason Robbins from DraftKings.
Right.
Anybody who looks at the numbers realizes that
Of course, right? The numbers-
iGaming, casino iGaming,
Yeah.
is a very financially beneficial tool to companies.
Right. Companies and states.
And states,
Yeah.
and everybody
Yeah.
who's dealing with it. I mean, it is people want it. But I think the issue that you're seeing right now is there's a bit of a reticence because sports wagering has exploded across the country in the last 5 years,
Right.
and I think there's a little fatigue with the expansion of gambling because of sports wagering.
Right.
And I think public policymakers are sometimes concerned of the power of the internet and how do we control this in a way that protects the citizens, protects your privacy.
Right.
And we're really ready to have casino-style gambling go online. And so there's a little bit of hesitancy because of, I think, not fear, but the concerns of the power influence ability of the people to use the internet and do things that otherwise they used to do in person, so they don't have to anymore.
Right.
And so I think there's a concern there. My general reaction is have patience, it's going to come.
Yeah.
And I say that for two reasons. One, it's well proven it's regulated.
Right.
It's not, the issue isn't how to regulate it or can it be regulated. It definitely can be regulated, and it can be done in ways that are actually stronger and better for a regulator than exist in a bricks and mortar world. Because you're not anonymous.
Right.
You will never be anonymous online unless you steal somebody's ID,
Right.
or identity theft.
Right.
That's a crime.
Yeah.
But the amount of information that is available to the government on what is going on the internet in a gambling field is huge.
Right.
And helps us understand that it's being done the right way, hopefully eliminating fraud, crime, dealing with people who are struggling, and forcing the industry who's doing this to also be involved in this in a way that they've never been involved before.
Right.
And so there's real, there are concerns about its power, but the controls, the checks, the balances, very substantial. And, I've said this before. We were at a meeting the other day, and it's that you heard me say it. Even though you think only 7 states have iGaming online, and that's true, traditional iGaming, you can look at another 10 states, probably, that have lottery games online.
Right. Sure.
And when you look at some of those lottery games,
Right.
I beg anybody to go to the state of Georgia, not to pick on Georgia. When you go online in the state of Georgia and see what kind of games you can play online,
Yeah.
this is a state that doesn't have casino gambling.
Right.
They don't have sports wagering.
They just
Take at their lottery site.
Right. Exactly.
They
right.
do a lot of gambling
Yeah.
on things other than buying a lottery ticket
Sure.
online.
Right. Yeah.
So, so yes, states are very much engaged in this in ways that are not recognized probably in the gaming industry because it's run by the state.
Sure. Right. Yeah.
That, but it's there, and
Yeah.
they do a good job. It's well regulated. They have all the controls built in that we have to have built
Sure.
in.
Right.
And so I think it's the issues for public policy decision makers are like at the end of the day, how's it going to be run? Who are the stakeholders? What piece of the pie do they want? And what are you comfortable with in your jurisdiction to share the wealth that is definitely available from this new industry?
Right. Yeah.
And then others maybe will see it as negative, that it's going to impact them because of cannibalization.
Sure. Right.
Those are all the debates that go on in the legislature and the public policy makers.
No question.
So,
Let's go back to land-based here. Atlantic City, when you came on, was very unstable. Let's say that.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
there was
was,
a lot of problems. And suddenly in 2014, it seemed to come to a head. We
Yes, it
lost
did.
3 or 4 casinos.
Yeah.
We had casinos closed before. We
like
look at
that.
Playboy / Atlantis. You look at the Sands, things like that. But this was a tidal wave of casino closings. How did the regulatory process handle that?
I know how I handled it, and I was very depressed.
Yeah.
I never want to close another casino again. It is horrible. The impact on people is huge. Losing their jobs, losing their lifeline to live in the community. And it kind of took me by surprise because I really was naive when I first started as director. I felt that with the regulatory changes that we were able to make and save millions of dollars in regulatory costs, and do things more effectively and efficiently, and allow for innovation, and allow for the industry to compete here in ways that other states didn't have the ability to, that we'd be able to save the casino industry at the time, which was about 12 casinos. And of course, Rebel was wasn't even open yet.
Yeah, sure.
And after probably about a year in the position, my staff educated me in a way that I remember that we're coming into some dark times here, and we're going to have to be closing casinos because they're just not going to be able to make it.
Right.
And I shortly came to the realization that they were right, and we held out as long as we could. And then, like you said, the end of 13 when Atlantic Club closed, and then into 14, which was horrible.
Right.
We ended up closing 3 casinos, and thousands of jobs and thousands of people out. And now, were patrons protected? Yes. Were employees protected through the traditional ways that employees were protected when companies closed? Yes. But it was horrific to the community. They were dark days for us, and it just made most of my staff and myself more dedicated to then getting more opportunities into the hands of the casinos successful, so that they could then not go through this again.
Yeah.
And as you know, well, then we lost another one. And it really wasn't until 2018 when Hard Rock, which had acquired Taj, and Ocean, which was the old Rebel, they both opened the same day in 18. Right. So in 18 we had sports wagering start, 2 new casinos open, and finally for the first time in my career in the industry, I was like, we got an opportunity here to do things better than ever now. Right. I don't see anybody closing anymore. Yeah. Okay. Changing selling, different. But closing, not making it, and so it took us that long. When I thought we'd be able to turn this around in a year, I was definitely wrong.
Right.
And that was a long wait.
And then the pandemic hit. You know, as if you didn't have enough on your hands, right? I mean, that was, and then it was closed for what,
4 months.
4 months, and then when you reopened, people were eating in parking garages and things like that. I mean, it was wild, but I didn't hear anybody complain about the regulatory system at that point, because you guys bent over backwards to make sure that they got back open again,
in a safe
and healthy way.
Tremendous support from people in the governor's office. You had guys like Joe Kelly, obviously, at that time, and he was in the governor's office, head of economic development. You had clearly governor himself. You had chief counsel at the time. You had all these individuals knew that the industry was suffering.
Right.
You can't close.
Sure.
And when it was a struggle, but a lot of lessons learned by the industry in that time, and I would say some of them that are more beneficial to them now than ever, is that they began to adjust and adapt with new technology, upgrading their capital, right?
Sure.
Making investments into their property that had never been made before, changing the floor plans so that people would be much more appreciative of how to get around the casino and not being packed in.
Right.
The air handling systems. I mean, prior to COVID, I could say, well, I'd walk into some casinos and smell smoke.
Yeah, sure.
I tell anybody now that wants to come down here, go into a casino today, and you walk around. We're still allowed smoking.
Right.
It's not that obvious. Now, of course, if you go next to somebody who's smoking, yes, but I'm saying just in the past, you would walk in.
Sure. You'd
smell it.
Yeah.
And these, there are investments in those areas. So credit to the industry for adapting. And then, of course, we had online gambling.
Right.
And we all know what happened with online gambling during COVID.
Sure, right.
And the explosion in online gambling. This was the only game in town.
Right.
And sports wagering, hold on, I gotta tell this guy I'm calling back. There we go. Sorry. The we didn't have a lot of product being available for
Right.
either of the people
Sure,
that gamble
right.
in sports. But those who did, then I think got to get an appreciation of how to gamble online for casino gambling.
Mhm.
So that then when the sports wagering industry then came out much stronger to recruiting people and marketing, it was an easy adjustment.
Right.
And you just saw sports wagering companies, instead of worried about content for sporting events,
Mhm.
which are now 24/7, enter into deals and acquire companies or partner with companies. Now you had a company like DraftKings. You got
Yeah.
both.
Sure. Right. Yeah.
Well, they're going to be there. They got fantasy, they got sports, and they have online.
Yeah.
So this whole new model of a wide range of offerings probably may not have come about as quickly had not been for COVID.
Yeah.
It's just my opinion, but it's here now,
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
and that is the model for everybody.
Right, right. So how do you guys keep up with the changes in technology? I mean, especially with what we saw happen with MGM and Caesars last month with the hacking incidents, and now we also have the cashless gaming component that they're trying to get in as much as possible. So how do you guys keep up with that? I mean, I know you got a lab, but
We have a lab, and people don't understand. When I first started as director, we had 365 employees.
right.
Okay. Of course, we lost
Mhm.
total number of casinos went from 12 to 9, so we lost 3 casinos. Today, we have 320 people.
Yeah.
So I have less people than we had when we had 12 casinos, even though we have sports wagering, which is highly technological, and online gambling, which is completely technological.
Mhm.
And so as we made the transition from retail only with
Right.
employees, we had a technology side of the house. Technology side of the house, my lab right now, we have over 60 full-time employees.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we need it.
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
We need it here,
Mhm.
and we have it. And so the benefit we have here in that we have people working here with technology. They're dedicated, they're committed. I expect them to be on top of these games. And we have people who were in the lab previously that put on the books, for example, opportunities for the industry to engage in technology that they didn't do. In 2011, we allowed cashless technology in the casinos.
Yeah. Right.
We don't have it yet.
Yeah.
No, we have it online.
Yeah. Sure. Right.
But as you well know, it's an investment. It's
Sure,
a capital
yeah.
investment, and there's still concerns by some casinos that maybe it's not the way to go
Right.
with their business model. But it's here. And how do we deal with it? Is that you have to make a commitment, and then you have to have demands on the industry that they have the commitment
Mhm.
to staff what they need to do.
Right.
Okay. So it's a partnership.
Sure.
And if they didn't have their staff, they'd fail miserably.
Yeah.
So we require them to have cybersecurity
Mhm.
officers that report to the audit committee, not to the IT, not to the CEO, to the audit committee. And we have other requirements on them that never existed before.
Right.
In like how they do two-factor authentication, how they have to track the device that's being used to through technology,
Right.
track the device that's being used to gamble online. So
Right.
it's not yours that I'm stealing and
Right.
using. And so they've invested a huge amount of marketing capital to allow for their expertise. And if they didn't have their expertise, and I didn't have our expertise, it's not going to work.
Right.
So you got to give a little credit to the industry here too, where they know they have to put money into this. And in an area, like I said before, it was not a big commitment in the old days to
Right.
technology.
Sure. Right.
Okay.
Except spinning reels. That,
Yeah,
that's
right.
about-
Guys, I have one in my office, and
Yeah.
I look at it and try to look at it. Like, how did you deal with this all the time? I mean, all these coins and all
Right.
these reels, and it's like,
It's crazy,
how did
yeah.
you know it worked? So, yeah, if you don't have that personnel commitment, and if you don't have the resources, I would say I've told this to other jurisdictions, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to either outsource it or build it in-house,
Mhm.
and that's a big challenge
Right, right.
for the regulators.
Sure. Then we have AI coming down the pike
Oh
here.
my God, I
mean,
don't even know what that's going to be. It's not going to be my problem.
Yeah, right.
I'm scared to death of it.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, just wrapping your arms around that I can't even imagine how it's going to work.
Well, I'm not really not worried about the state of New Jersey. Governor Murphy has already put together a task force, and for not just
Right.
the gaming
Sure.
industry. This is for all commercial applications, and like anything else that's new in this country, people adapt.
Right.
And but yeah, Governor Murphy had the foresight to do that. He's on top of it, and whatever comes out of that task force will be easily adaptable to regulators like myself,
right.
and whoever replaces me in the future to be prepared.
Okay.
That's all you can ask for.
Great. So, looking back on your career, obviously you're going to get immense credit for the iGaming launch. There's the smoothness of how that happened. I mean, looking back, I know you see all the bumps in the road, but when we look back on it in 20 years, I think we're going to go, how did they do that so gracefully? But
Well,
is that what
It's
you're most
just
proud
what the
of?
public sees.
Yeah, of
But
course.
behind the scenes there were some trying moments.
Sure.
And my staff will tell you I was pretty mean-spirited at times to them, I'm sure. And I know there was one operator who will never ever forget what I did to them. So
Right.
anyway, but it was all private.
Right, sure.
So what I'm most proud of? I'm most proud of this division
Yeah.
because they adapted.
Mhm.
They adapted too.
Yeah,
And states public agencies, public employees get a bad rap.
right,
And in my personal opinion, the state agency made me as the hero in many things they did. And they committed themselves. They did the work. There's a lot of people out there that I won't name names today, but the industry knows who they are. And because of their advice and guidance and input and our dialogue that existed and back and forth and trying to make decisions, they can in many ways convince me to do things that otherwise, if they didn't speak up,
right,
we'd have some problems today.
right, okay, great.
Because my ideas are not always correct.
Right, or
All
not
right.
always well received, I guess. Let's put it that
Well,
way.
sometimes not well received by the industry, and
Right.
sometimes not well received by my staff. But that's why you have this open interaction that in New Jersey between the industry and the regulator has to exist.
Right,
And so the mindset that existed before 2011, with the changes that were made then, have proven in my career
right,
is the way you should go.
yeah, okay,
Because if you think from top down that you can tell the industry what to do, like we've seen in other countries,
right,
without their input,
yeah,
until after you tell them what to do,
Right.
and then they give them an opportunity to respond. We don't work that way.
sure, right,
And it's proactive, and there's never total agreement. But I think there's a clear, concise understanding amongst the parties on why you're doing what you're doing and reasons why, and allow them the opportunity to come back to you in a longer period of time and say, I told you I was right. How come you did it this way?
Right.
Why don't you make a decision to make some changes? And you know what?
yeah,
We will.
yeah, no question. So what's next for Dave Rebuck? I know you want to kick back and retire a little bit, but
Now I want to stay active in the industry,
Sure.
just on a part-time basis, and I'm very interested in still Atlantic City. I mean, this state is committed to Atlantic City. It's an urban area that suffers all the ills of an urban area, and any urban area in this country. The casinos are dedicated to help this community be better. And as you know, I'm on the CRDA. We
Right.
do a lot in that area to try to help this community. I mean, you have challenges that are like any urban area in the country.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't live in Atlantic City, but I'm from South Jersey, and I'm not going to move from New Jersey. I just have decided that we're in a smooth period of time.
Yeah,
Maybe it's right to go because, there's no big challenges right now.
right, yeah,
there will be in the future, but when you get to a point when in your career, do I have the energy? Do I have the commitment? I'm going to be able to deliver like I have in the past, and I don't know, and I don't want to take that risk of being viewed as somebody just hanging on.
Right.
Because that's not my style.
No.
And so yeah, I'll be engaged still, and this industry is in this country is not going away.
Right.
And if anything, it's going to continue to expand in areas that they don't exist today.
Yeah, that you can't imagine.
So it's been a great run. Never thought I'd be here this long. Like I said before, my desire at the time was to get out in 1 year. That didn't work. I obviously failed to do that.
1 year.
1 year turned into 12, and but I am again very proud of where this division is, and whoever comes in the future, I will work with him or her to give them my best advice on what I learned, and they will then become the new leader. And I'm very comfortable and confident that in New Jersey, the expectation is this state will be a leader. And that's from the highest level.
Yeah.
It's been 2 governors I had, absolutely dedicated, committed, and wanted you to be successful as successful can be, and commit and provided you with the resources to do it. And I fully expect that that's going to continue, certainly under Governor Murphy. And then, we have a new election and new governor in the future. But New Jersey can't just rest on its laurels, and nor will it ever, because it has a history of 45 years of being a leader, as you well know.
Sure.
And all those who were before me, when I looked at what they did when I was coming in, I said, don't screw it up.
Yeah.
Because you'll be the first one that really screws it up,
Right.
and then you're going to be the one that killed the industry.
Yeah, great.
So.
Well, I would say that congratulations. This will be the last time we speak, but I know it's not
we'll
going to be.
speak more. I mean,
because I've done a lot of exit interviews with regulators before, particularly with the Indian Gaming chairman,
sure.
and I continue to do podcasts with them. So I'm sure we'll do this again, and we'll value your experience and your views. So Dave, congratulations once
Thank
again,
you again.
and we'll definitely stay in touch.
Thank you for all your help too and advice over the years, because there are certain people in the media, in your government agency or government leader, sometimes the media drives you crazy because you just don't understand what you do, and you try to educate them. But I would tell you, in some of these things that we did differently in the past, people like yourself who knew about iGaming, sports wagering, and others, I won't go into them, but they know who they are. They provided us with input, guidance, suggestions, and considerations that we took into play. And I've been very thankful for their advice, because you know what? It was helpful.
Right.
And thank you again for all your services to us in this area, because I know your heart's in the right place too.
I can vouch for the fact that you take the feedback, because I remember when we were setting up the affiliate marketing business in New Jersey. Me and Melissa Blau and several others came in here to harass you. Hey, you got to make this right for us.
I know. Well, that was lessons learned. What's an affiliate? It's like, what the hell's an affiliate? I don't even know what it was.
Right. Yeah.
And people come in. Well, we want a skin. What's a skin? I don't know. Skin? What are you talking about?
It's crazy. Yeah.
And all the acronyms. And again, it was learning a new language, because most of this again was operating in European countries, and they felt they had the best thing going since sliced bread. And as you know, they came in and they were saying, flip the switch and we'll get you up live immediately.
Right.
And you know from your dealings with me on the affiliate, we don't flip switches in New Jersey.
Of course. Right.
You want to tell me how you do it? I want to see what's behind that switch.
Right. Exactly.
And then we'll implement it, because where you're flipping the switch in other countries, I think we got a better system here.
Right.
All right.
Well, Dave, thanks and congratulations, and I'm looking forward to interviewing your successor. So.
Yeah, well,
he's got some big shoes to fill.
He or she's going to do just fine, and of course you can talk to the governor about that, because that's his decision.
Right, exactly. Great.
And
Thank you.
I'll be happy to give part of that team if they want me to help them, but it's their decision.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, Roger. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on the GGB Podcast, sponsored by Pavilion Payments, the industry's leading cashless payment provider. To learn more about the topics discussed today and all the important issues in gaming, check out Global Gaming Business Magazine. For a free virtual copy of the magazine, subscribe at ggbmagazine.com. To stay current with the weekly news of the gaming industry, subscribe to ggbnews.com. Use the coupon code GGB180 for a free subscription. Don't miss a single episode of the GGB Podcast. Subscribe on Amazon, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts today. So we'll see you next time on the GGB Podcast.